Hello, and welcome to my analysis of a Fortune 500 company, Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin is a global aerospace, defense, and security company specialized in advanced technology systems, including military aircraft, missiles, space systems, and cybersecurity solutions. It's the largest defense contractor in the world. It operates in four main business segments: aeronautics, missile and fire control, rotary mission systems, and space systems, satellites, and NASA partnerships. I chose them because, as an accounting major, they have a couple different facets that I believe in and find attractive. Primarily, their complex financial reporting compliance. Due to having a lot of the revenue exist from military contracts, the process is lengthy and requires accurate financial reporting, as well as similarly their budgets and due diligence. They also have an ethical and strategic decision making based on precision, something that I personally very subscribe to. All right, let's get into some Pastel analysis. Primarily, there are some political factors that Lockheed Martin is facing, mainly government dependency. Lockheed Martin derives 70% of its revenue from the U.S. Department of Defense. This makes it highly sensitive to political changes. Another factor is geopolitical tensions. Rising tensions with China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea increase demand for defensive capabilities, benefiting Lockheed. Another factor is international military sales. Arms exports policies subject to regulations and international diplomacy affect foreign sales. Certain markets could be closed off to them due to tariffs or embargoes, for example. Now we move on to economic factors. For example, inflation and rising interest rates. These impact raw material costs, wage demands, and capital project financing. Supply chain volatility also affects them. Global supply disruptions impact production timelines, especially for rare materials like semiconductors and earth metal. Defense budget trends. U.S. defense spending remains high, but subject to questioning shifting priorities. This could impact their revenue. All right, now the social factors. Primarily, public sentiment defense. War fatigue or anti-militarism is becoming increasingly popular, especially among younger generations, can pressure lawmakers to add increasing regulations. Lockheed Martin is also incredibly rely on highly specialized talent, engineers, and cybersecurity experts. This comes with a workforce and aging skill gap. Aerospace and defense face talent shortages, so Lockheed Martin is impacted by this, especially in STEM roles. Now, for technological factors, AI autonomy and cybersecurity. Rapid innovation in AI, quantum computing, and autonomous systems is transforming warfare. If Lockheed Martin doesn't keep up, they could end up being ousted. There's also a space technology race. Both commercial space and national space initiatives present competitive opportunities and threats. Again, Lockheed Martin has to keep up. Now on to environmental factors. Climate change and DoD mandates. The Department of Defense is increasingly integrating climate resilience and procurement policies. This could add to costs as well as production timelines. It might cause them to miss some deadlines for contracts. Emission regulations. Aerospace manufacturing is carbon intensive, and pressure is mounting to reduce environmental impact, again, adding to costs. They also have to be incredibly mindful of their stakeholders demanding ESG reporting. They demand transparency of these factors on environmental, social, and governance practices, and it could be detrimental to them if certain factors and variables are not to their stakeholders' liking. Now on to legal factors. Export control and compliance. They are beholden to many regulations, especially since they are a defense contractor, and it can pose strict constraints on international operations, even so far as to reduce production and market growth, as preventing them from selling. They have, especially due to their position as a critical defense contractor, Lockheed must comply with DFARS and CMC, cybersecurity maturity and model certification requirements. This could limit their cybersecurity division's growth, as well as being the primary defense contractor. They are a target of antitrust scrutiny, as a lot of mergers and acquisitions have been blocked before, especially with a recent acquisition of Aerojet Rocketdyne was blocked in the U.S., primarily because of fears of them becoming a monopoly. Now into Porter's five forces. Threat of new entrants for the defense industry is rather low. It has high barriers due to capital requirements and government contractors. Bargaining powers of buyers in the defense industry is high. The U.S. government negotiates aggressively on anything to cost to price of contracts. Bargaining powers of suppliers is moderate. Limited suppliers for specialized components, but they are competing fiercely in that margin. Stuff like superconductors and specialized fuel and aeronautics parts. Threats of substitutes is low. There's few alternatives to advanced military tech. Industrial rivalry is moderate. Competition with Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and Raytheon is fierce, and in order to stay ahead of the curve, Lockheed has to keep innovating. Complementers is actually moderate as well. Tech firms and space agencies as well as AI enhance capabilities, especially in their cybersecurity division. Now into viro analysis. Lockheed has several competitive advantages. Their F-35 program, for example, is valuable, rare, costly to imitate, organized to exploit, and sustained. Their only competitive advantage that is currently not costly to imitate is their cybersecurity division, and it's temporary because of this, as it doesn't require a huge amount of capital, but instead just time and making sure it is valuable. Now I'll move on to business level strategy. Lockheed Martin follows a differentiated strategy through technological superiority, stealth aircraft, hypersonic missiles. However, cost efficiency is also crucial due to government budget constraints. For example, some key components of this are their advanced technology, customization and system integration, and brand equity and trust. Now on to corporate level strategy. Lockheed Martin's corporate strategy can be summarized as a mix of the build, borrow, buy model, supported by a focus on core competencies, government partnerships, and selective diversification. All right. Now on to strategic recommendations. Currently, Lockheed faces a number of key strategic challenges. Primarily, firstly, they have an over-reliance on government contracts. 70% of Lockheed Martin revenue comes from the U.S. Department of Defense. This makes the company vulnerable to budget cuts during political transitions, geopolitical strategy changes, or regular delays and administrative bottlenecks. For example, if U.S. defense spending declines or priorities shift away from conventional military hardware, revenue growth could stall. Another strategic challenge is supply chains disruption and inflation. Since their production based entirely around military defense and contracting, supply chain shortages do hurt them extremely hard. It can erode profit margins, production delays, cause production delays, and potential contract penalties if deadlines aren't met. This primarily happens with semiconductors, the rising cost of raw materials, and just general global shipping delays can all hurt them. Also, a third strategic challenge is they have a need for diversification currently. They have a deep expertise in defense, but limited presence in commercial markets, primarily working with governments in the private sector. Relying only on government contracts is increasingly risky, given global instability and budget constraints. Generally, the risk just entails that their lack of exposure to fast-growing adjacent markets like private space missions, commercial cybersecurity, or civil aviation could hurt them in the long run, and is something that should be considered. Right, now into strategic enhancements, or what I would recommend they would do around these. Firstly, diversify the revenue streams. Expand into commercial space. Leverage their existing technologies, e.g. satellite systems, deep space tether tech to enter commercial satellite launch services, lunar and Mars-related logistics for private space firms, or Earth observation communication networks. They should also grow their cybersecurity services. They could offer advanced cyber defense to critical infrastructure operators or Fortune 500 firms need military-grade cybersecurity. They should improve cost efficiency by advocating for long-term supplier contracts through volume purchasing, strategic partnerships, and for guaranteed pricing. They should strengthen international partnerships and navigate ITR and compliance smoothly to reduce costs. Ensure that they are compliant, as well as keeping the process and streamlining it down to save time and cost. All right, that's it for my analysis. Thank you so much for listening.